Comparison: New Ducati DesertX 2023 vs 2023 KTM 890 Adventure R. The midsize ADV market has a new and very potent player in the Ducati DesertX. How does it go against the established class king, the KTM 890 Adventure R? KTM has known this for a few years with the 790/890 Adventure series, as his triumph with its Tiger 850 and BMW with the 750/850 GS line. Yamaha recently joined with the Tenere 700 and Aprilia has done likewise with the fantastic Touareg 660. But there was one Euro manufacturer missing: Ducati. The Italians have made more noise than any of the aforementioned companies of late, releasing a deluge of new or revised models since 2019. That was the year we saw our first glimpses of the bike Ducatisti have longed for, a machine we finally got this year in the brilliant DesertX. Far from being a trumped-up scrambler like the prototype that we saw in 2019 at EICMA, the DesertX was a ground-up job designed for serious sports adventure riding. And Ducati had one bike in mind it wanted to topple upon release: its Austrian neighbors to the north, KTM and the 890 Adventure R. We've tested the 890R against pretty much every other midsize ADV machine over the last few years, and guess what? It's won every time, so you think you'd be safe to say the KTM is going to win against the Ducati and go back to whatever it was you were doing before reading this test. Well, you might be very wrong. Face value: Ducati DesertX vs KTM 890 Adventure R. Just for equal footing, we put both bikes on a set of new Metzeler Karoo 4 tires, the hoops we rode on in Iceland a few months ago and loved. You can check out the full Metzeler Karoo 4 tire test here. The Ducati and KTM are quite different beasts designed for arguably different riders, but there's no denying the sporting intention of both machines. You can read our full review of the DesertX here and the KTM ADV 890R test here, but there are some key areas we should highlight before we get going. The first is price. At $17,095, the Ducati is 8.7% more expensive than the KTM at $14,199. That's a substantial chunk of change, but one thing that must be considered with the Ducati is you can only buy one spec of motorcycle. That gives you the 110 horsepower at 68 lb-ft of torque out of the 11 degrees test Strada L-Twin, a tubular steel chassis, KYB suspension, and all the electronic trimmings, including 6 riding modes, 4 power modes, Ducati wheelie control, DWC, engine brake control, EBC, cornering ABS with off-road mode, Ducati quick shift up/down, DQS, cruise control, full LED lighting system, daylight position lamp, DRL, Ducati brake light, DBL that flashes for emergency stops, USB power socket, 12V socket and self-canceling indicators. The KTM subscribes to the company's model of gradual spec upgrades after purchase, but it's really only the Rally Pack for an extra $500 you need. Rally Pack gives you the Rally throttle mode to go alongside the street, off-road, and rain modes, and also unlocks 9-stage adjustable traction control as opposed to the regular on/off traction control the KTM comes with as standard. There's also KTM's motor slip regulation, which works with the slipper clutch and opens the throttle valves just slightly to give a more controlled deceleration if you chop the throttle hard or if the grip levels are low like out on a trail. On top of that, the KTM has the raucous 889 cubic centimeters parallel twin pumping out 100 horsepower at 74 lb-ft, a tubular steel chassis with the low-mounted fuel tank near the rider's knees, 12V power socket, cruise control, and 0.74 inches more rear suspension travel at 9.4 inches, front is also 9.4 inches, versus the Ducati's 9.06. Not same. Ducati DesertX vs KTM 890 Adventure R. A closer look at the spec sheet reveals one of the major differences between the two bikes. With a wheelbase of 63.3 inches, a steering rake of 27.6 degrees and a wet weight of 492 pounds, the Ducati has far more relaxed dimensions compared to the KTM's 60.2-inch/26.3 degree/464 pound numbers, and this is something you really notice on the trails. The Ducati is slower in the steering than the KTM, but it's also more stable. This translates not only to greater confidence for an average off-road rider like myself compared to the expert level my fellow tester Jesse Ziegler is, but the rangier riding position was also more comfortable for long periods in the saddle compared to the compact nature of the KTM. The Ducati's stability is one of its selling points, that long swing arm helping the chassis track beautifully over rough terrain without sending undue stresses to the front of the bike, while the KTM's twitchier and snappier chassis suits a higher grade of rider that's willing to screw it on a bit harder. However, the KTM's WP splir fork and shock combination are clearly superior to the Ducati's KYB units when the going gets really rough. KTM's spent years developing this fork and shock in conjunction with the 790/890 Adventure itself, perfecting it to the point where Jesse and I both agree it's the best ADV suspension package on the market today. But again, KTM's ready-to-race mantra starts to shine through as the ride is stiff and taut compared to the softer base setup of the Ducati. In turn, this makes the Ducati nicer to deal with on tarmac, something we've got to take into account given how many tar miles these bikes do. We're not all doing our own off-road long way round tour. The seat heights are near identical between the two bikes, the Ducati measuring only 0.2 inches less at 34.4. Brakes are the same in the Brembo monoblock radially mounted 4-piston calipers and off-road ABS. And weights are within 2 pounds fully fueled at 492 for the Ducati and 490 for the KTM. The fuel capacities are close at 5.54 gallons for the Ducati and 5.3 for the KTM. However, Ducati has scored an ace over KTM in the travel department by designing the back of the motorcycle to carry the company's accessory auxiliary gas tank that pumps the capacity up to a massive 7.9 gallons, the same as the BMW R1250 GS Adventure. Whether you actually need 8 gallons of gas is debatable, and we didn't test the Ducati with the extra tank, but long-range riders will be happy to have the option for the Ducati. KTM's low-slung gas tank has always been one of its selling points. The low center of gravity by way of keeping the fuel low ensures that the 890 has plenty of stability over rough terrain even while the fuel load gradually decreases. You can ride over pretty much anything on an 890R as the combination of this weight placement and the excellent WP suspension with a little extra travel makes for a seriously impressive machine. As does that parallel twin motor. KTM's created one of the best engines on the market today for any type of motorcycle in the 100 horsepower 889 cubic centimeters unit. Mated to all the electronics the Ducati has, it's smoother on the initial touch of the throttle compared to the Ducati when in full power mode and has more than enough top end for highway use. The Ducati's 937 cubic centimeters L-twin still retains a tiny bit of hesitation, tiny, when in full power mode, but when it's dialed back for the dirt level 75 horsepower, the throttle application is idyllically smooth. It's rare you need more than 75 horsepower on dirt, even at the best of times, so at least for me, off-road mode was where the majority of my dirt time was spent. However, Ducati missed a trick with the ease of use with the electronics. The phone-style dash can be a pain to navigate, and it's more difficult to find and adjust the areas you want than the KTM. KTM has kept the same dash for 5 years now, and although, yes, we're now used to it, the simple fact is everything is just easier to navigate with and adjust. That being said, it's unlikely you're going to require more than 2 individual preset maps on either bike, one for the road, one for the street, but the KTM's ease of electronics use was still a win over the Ducati. Which one is best? Ducati DesertX versus KTM 890 Adventure R. The answer to that is very much up to the individual and what you want out of your adventure riding. I've got to be honest and say I was so impressed by the Ducati against the established star of the field in the KTM that I can't believe I'm saying this. I would take the Ducati for my personal bike if I were given the choice. The combination of a rangy ride position, excellent stability thanks to the extended wheelbase over the KTM, that lovely engine, although not as nice as the KTM, and the fact I could, if I really wanted, put a couple of extra gallons on the back makes for a very persuasive argument, regardless of the cost. I also think it looks way prettier. I'm shallow, looks matter. The KTM is indeed a sharper tool than the Ducati, which is absolutely undeniable. The racier suspension setup, low-slung fuel tank and the tighter confines of the cockpit suit a more aggressive rider than me, hence the reason Jesse is such a convert. Unlike the hyper-naked bike class, where everything is so damn fast, it only really matters what color you like your bike. The middleweight ADV sector represents very personal choices for the rider. For me personally, that makes the Ducati the winner.